Hey folks, it is a year since I got the house and I just wanted to give you a bit of a tour because a few things have changed now, and yeah, I just want to kind of take stock of everything in one video and just see how far things have come along, see how much we're still planning on doing for the next 12 months. Obviously there's major work's going to be happening, and even now behind me you can see that there's a lot of stuff going on. So let's have a quick run around. So this is the front room, but you can see not a huge amount has really happened to most of the room. You know, I stripped off the wallpaper, but the door that was here has now been replaced with a larger opening. This actually still needs a lot of work. I still need to, yes, do lots of that. This is the main wall, the main spine of the house. And this one as well has been opened up. That was solid last year, so we just cut that one through just to give us a nice kitchen diner open plan. This is the green room. The last tour we did last year, this was full of rubbish bags, and you can see that nothing's really happened to the room itself other than having wallpaper stripped. Into the hallway. Again, porch is still as it was. Still got this beautiful staircase. A little bit dusty, but I'm gonna try and recondition it as much as I can. So this is another room that's had pretty major differences. So this was the kitchen when I bought it. You can see we've still got the kitchen sink in here. And all of the cabinetry has been taken out, aside from the sink. The boiler has been decommissioned because it's never been serviced. It's not in good condition and I wouldn't trust it. And this window and lintel has been replaced. So now we have an actual UPVC window, properly sealed, nice double glazing. And yeah, all of the mold has been dealt with in that corner. All of the damp issues have been removed. And there was a major leak coming through here. That was actually a broken drain pipe that was causing problems. Coming around here into the basement. So excuse me because there's no lighting in the house at the moment, but coming down here we can see, compared to last year, I mean this was just absolutely chock-a-block. Coming down here, all of this room was good, 5 feet, 6 feet deep across places with rubbish. The floor, you couldn't see any of the concrete on the floor. And the same in here, this was just full of chairs and paint pots, and this has now been really opened up, and I replaced that window at some point this year. It's a kind of temporary window. Also, we can't see it, but there was lead pipe in here for the water, and that's all been replaced as well. Coming to the back here. This room was being used as a laundry when I bought it, so there was a washing machine, and there was a very narrow corridor to the back door that you could just about walk down. But all of this was just completely piled with rubbish, and it's quite staggering really just to think about the state that it was in. So just here on the side of the door there was an outhouse. That's all been removed. And then down on this side this was completely full of rubbish as well, just on that where it meets the main part of the house. And going up the back there, so we've had new dormers put in on the top floor. So these are all new leading, new slates. And the chimney, you can see that bit of mortar there. There was a chimney going straight up the top there. It was leaning over, it had a tree growing out of it. So that was a bit of a problem. You can't see actually. We do still have a little bit of shrapnel about to fall off. But for now, this is looking much, much better. Garden is much better than it was as well. This drain is going to be replaced in January, so that all the way back to the house, and then there should be an inspection hatch fitted as well. Heading on through the house. So I haven't done anything to repair this newel post yet, just because that was one of those things where, this is has the potential to get damaged again, so don't want to cause any problems. We see here in the bathroom, cleared out a lot of the rubbish. Still, again, pretty much in its state. Back seats in my car there. There's going to be a lot of work happening to this room over the next 12 months just to make it good. For example, this chimney breast is going to come out. The window will be replaced, the suite will be replaced, all of this will be boarded out properly, the ceiling will be redone and insulated, all of the plumbing will be replaced. So there's a lot to do here, but it will get done. So that's something that's kind of had a pause this year. Same again for the bathroom. Sorry, for the toilet there. That's all going to be replaced. Here we go, coming into here. So this was, we called it the crucifix room just because it had a crucifix in here when we bought it. This has all had everything stripped out of it, basically. Nice big windows, but again, all going to be replaced. The ceiling came down, my brother did that. Back of these walls as well, all of that lath and plaster. So it's not a tiny room, but it's in need of a lot of work still. So for now, it's just been enough to strip it out and just kind of leave it as it is. But it will be properly attended to at some point. Maybe not in the next 12 months though. That's another one that might be on a bit of a pause. Let's come up here into the front room. So this again, another one that's been on a bit of a pause. So not much has happened. We had this chimney swept out properly. Other than that, pretty much just keeping it clean, getting a little bit of this flooring up and seeing what's going on underneath. I'm going to be stripping out the radiator and dealing with plumbing this year. So there will be some work, but again, this room is probably not going to see much attention. Potentially, I'll just remove that hearth and the shelf going around the edge there. But otherwise, I think this is probably, again, a job for 2025. Last time I was here, this was a very different staircase up. There's been a lot of work on the top floor. That's where most of my attention has been. So as we can come up, this is the office ahead of us. Or what will be the office, what will become the office. Now we can see as we come into here, this was completely full last year. Just absolutely stacked with rubbish and shelves and bookcases and things. So it's been great to get this one emptied. But at the same time, we can see that the actual state of the wall is kind of awful. You can see these continuous joints, mortar joints that run down many, many rows. It's just a very badly put together house. Bit of a concern, but it is what it is at this point. So this is the corner window. The window in the corner, and it will be extended around and across. And this chimney stack, this is above the bathroom. This whole chimney stack is going to be removed. The chimney breast is going to be removed internally. So that'll all be a nice view to give us a view of the sea there. But for now, this is the kind of the major work for the next 12 months. This is what a lot of stuff is kind of banking on. This is the big one. Getting that corner window in, because that's going to be when we can replace all of the render and finish the roof. So this view is very different from last year. Coming around the top of this banister and seeing actually into the main space is a very big difference. So this was a solid wall. There was a doorway around about here into a yellow bedroom, and you can see that dark patch there with the saw hanging. That's where that wall was coming across. So coming into this bedroom, this has all been insulated, new roof, and I just need to work out really what to do for my finishes. Nice new window, nice new dormer. Just again need to finish off that insulation across the sill. And turning back, you can see just a really nice big space, really big open space. So last year, again, I came up to this point and there was a doorway here that I couldn't open because the room beyond it was so full with rubbish. And again, it was just mounds of rubbish. But looking at this now, it's quite different. It's quite a different space to how it was. And a nice big dormer on this front elevation here, looking across there. So here we go. This is going to be sort of our main living room, lounge area, just at the top of the house. Nice little lighthouse. It is so different from how it was 12 months ago, and it's it can feel like there's very little progress being made. You know, you watch people's house montages on YouTube and they'll do like an entire renovation in 7 months. And frankly, that is just incredibly unrealistic. Now that I'm doing one myself, and I'm not a builder, it's very painfully obvious that it's just not something that you can easily take on alongside full-time employment and just make it happen, especially when there are going to be major structural works happening. If you could just buy a house that just needed a bit of decoration, a little bit of TLC, then definitely you can do that. But when it comes to something like this, where I had to get a new roof, I'm needing another new roof for the back section, I'm needing all of the render replaced on the back, I'm needing a new soil stack, new bathroom, really major things, the corner window as well. So all of these things are quite structural. They're going to need scaffolding, they're going to need actual builders, they're going to need, you know, structural engineers. It's a pretty big undertaking to do on your own. So that is the major delay, is planning the works, getting people to agree to do the works. And then obviously all that time you need to be earning, because you've got to pay for the work somehow, and then you've got to do the DIY in the spare time around the edge. So taking on a house like this is a pretty big financial and time commitment, but at the same time it is hugely rewarding to be able to walk around it now and see just the progress that we've made in the last 12 months. A year is not a long time, really. And getting to see, you know, those wall openings on the ground floor, the openings up here now into this big lounge area, and just the state of it, looking back at that video from last year and seeing the state of all those rooms, just shocking. Last year when we went through this spreadsheet, I think it was the start of March, and really that was the end of the cheap period of the house. I think by that point I'd spent around about £5,000 additionally on top of the house purchase and conveyance costs. This time I'm not going to touch any of the pre-purchase because that's not really relevant for what we're talking about today. I am only interested in what costs I have accrued since actually starting working on the house, because that is kind of the important part of being in a property like this. Let's just have a quick skim through. We're going to be starting from January the 14th, it looks like. So before that, it was all just bills and maybe just buying a few rubbish bags and things like that. So we're going to see a lot of Screwfix, a lot of Toolstation. These are just the general kind of hardware stores in the UK. So pretty standard for people to go and buy drills, gloves, dust masks, things like that in those kinds of stores. So I did pay for a few things pretty early on there. So February I paid for capping off the gas. That basically, to my mind, made the house safe from gas leaks. The gas still comes into the house, comes as far as the meter, and then this is capped officially at that point. This just means that I can open it up to have gas boiler in the future, which I am now actually planning on doing. And then there was a new water main, so that was £600. That was the first sort of considerable cost for the house. Then there were some structural drawings. So I went to a structural engineer to have drawings brought up for, this says the kitchen and office window. So that was the ground floor. There's the what is going to be the utility floor in the back there. That was quite a load. And then the new kitchen, dining room, those openings needed to be made in the wall. And the office window is that big corner window on the top floor, which also involves replacing the roof there. So I had proper structural drawings done. That was £780. That was quite expensive. We're also going to see as we come down here, I have things like council tax. This is a monthly payment that you make to the local council for things like paying for rubbish removal and things like that. Paying for skips, that's going to become something which is more standard over the next 12 months. It's around about £300 per skip, which is quite expensive. But every time I need to remove a large quantity of things, I need a skip. Can't really do it in my car. So that's just going to be one of those things that starts happening more frequently. I had a solar quote, but I've decided to not go with solar in the end, just because there was so much shading from the neighbouring chimneys. There's a dormer window, there's a gable. So even though I'm a perfectly south-facing roof there on that elevation, there's just no way to make solar panels actually useful, because they're always going to be switched off because there's always going to be too much shadow. This is when it got really expensive. So I hired on a project manager, and I'll show you a graph here as well. I would not recommend anybody hires a project manager to do a house like this. If you can go to an entire firm that does all of the works and you just say, this is what I want, go and do it, that's fine. If you're going to an individual independent project manager who is going to subcontract people, you are better off just doing that yourself. They will run up the most absurd amount of money. They will add a massive percentage on top of anyone that they subcontract. I think I was being charged an additional 35 to 50% on every quotation that he got me. The amount of work that he did for the amount of money that he was taking was also just really shocking. And also the quality of work that he was doing was really shocking. So I wouldn't recommend that you go with a project manager because frankly, you can just learn to do these things yourself and just take a little bit more time over it. I've spent a year doing ostensibly not very much. I didn't need him in the end. Looking back, I didn't need him. I was just panicking. But we can see here, I had that £2,800 initial project management, and that was just basically for him to walk around the house and draw up a list of works that needed doing. So that was insane. And yeah, I didn't turn away from him because I was so stressed at that point that I really felt like I needed some support, regardless of how much it was going to cost me. In retrospect, that was a mistake. I gave him the amount of money that I could pay for a kitchen and a new bathroom with change to spare, and that was just a waste of money. Continuing down here, we have a few things. I replaced the window in the basement, so bought parts for that. Quotes for replacing the drain, even just a quote, you can see that was £600 for the quote there. Ridiculous. Again, that was mainly part of the markup from the project manager. Had to get an adjustment to the structural drawings because the lintel and roof detailing was incorrect based on our exploration. A little bit more project management stuff in here. Lintel and openings deposit again. That's a work for the lintels to be cut through those openings in the kitchen dining room. However, the work probably was worth around about 1,500. You can see that he's added around about 2,000 on top for the deposit only. And then here's the biggest cost that I've had so far. This was the roof. So this was not part of the project manager. And the major cost here was because the roof is done in Burlington slate. So it's a very thick, well, it's specifically Thicks, Burlington Thicks. So it's a thick cut slate. It lasts a very long time, several hundred years, quite comfortably. But it is an expensive natural material. So that would have added quite a lot to this. And I also have a 10 or 20 year guarantee on the roof. So anytime anything happens, he'll come fix it for free. And he also replaced the dormers as well. So that was £22,000 for the roof. Quite expensive, especially considering that I don't have the rear section of it done. And the property is quite small. But a lot of that cost as well came from scaffolding because especially at the rear elevation, it's 4 floors up. So it's quite a tall house. Dormer windows as well. That was another £1,000 for those two. And then we have building control costs in here as well. So in the UK, certain works that you do to your house fall under needing building control so that they know and can certificate that you are doing work properly, and it becomes kind of maybe an issue, maybe not an issue when you come to actually sell a property. But a lot of times, especially with an old house, you'll just have the knowledge that work will have been done without building controls, especially if it's older work. And if you are worried about it, you can take out an indemnity insurance against that work. So the fact that I'm paying 420 there, and I believe there's another 300 somewhere, getting on for £1,000, the better part of £1,000 just for this questionably useful stuff. I'm not here to give proper advice, but going back at this again, I don't think I would have engaged building control until a bit later, and I think I would have broken up the work a little bit more so that I could just use them for the things that they specifically needed to be engaged with. So we have another big cost here, £6,478. That comes from the remainder of the lintel work and plastering of one wall. Again, absurd costs. The quality of the plastering was very bad and it took several days for him to put it up. So I did get my outhouse removed. That was a fantastic job done, very inexpensive. £600. They took half a day and they ripped down this outhouse that was dangerous and risk of falling on the neighbour's property, which obviously is not something that I want to have. Big cost for insulation boards. This was literally just a raw material cost. I was putting up those boards myself. Again, another skip, and work on the paint stripping. Those beams in the roof, they took me a very long time to do, but it was one of those jobs that I feel like it's added a lot of value to the space in having that natural material visible. Coming down a little bit further here, we have got our window. So this was the utility window, 150 quid, really very inexpensive for that. Can't complain. I put it in myself. It was not the most fun of a job, but only because the wall kind of fell to pieces when I was taking it out. But yes, there's a good window there, so I'll probably go back to them for windows in the future. A few additional costs though with buying tooling to be able to put in that window. These are probably tools that I need in the fullness of time, but Actually, would it have been cheaper for me to get a professional fitter? Maybe. Had the lounge wired, so that's the top floor, £350. Not too bad for that. More insulation board because I didn't have enough for my original purchase, so that was another £680. And then some additional tools and things like that. And then home insurance, so my insurance for the next 12 months. Let's jump over to a graph here because I think this kind of sums up a lot of the rate of expense. So you can see that we have a pretty flat line and a few big steps in it, but otherwise the gradient of the line seems fairly consistent. I've done a few variations of this to remove certain things. So first of all, I want to remove the roof just because it is an extreme cost, and you can see there that's that big step. So that was that 22 grand step. The reason I want to remove that is just because I don't think it really adds to the story here. And what I want to show you is the cost of the project manager, the amount of money that they basically accrued over the period that I was working with them. We can see on this bottom here, I worked with them from the middle of April to the end of July. So quite a long period. If I remove the project manager and the roof, there we go. So you can see that my sort of general, I want to say like ambient expense is just kind of stepping up here. And this is not including bills or mortgage, so that would change it slightly. But those, again, they are consistent payments. So you can see that we have a fairly consistent uniform expenditure going through the year just on my DIY costs. And those alone come to just below £10,000. So 12 months, around about £10,000 on DIY costs. Obviously, with the roof as well, you can see that we have this major step in the middle here towards the end of the roof period, and that is going to be adding that 22,000. So now we're looking at around about £32,000 there. The difference between no roof and no project manager and no roof is ridiculous. So as we switch between these, we can see that we have just an absurd amount. That's kind of good news though, because it means that this, now, especially now I don't have a project manager, this is kind of our general gradient. So we can assume probably around about £10,000 of costs per year if I was going to predict. And then on top of that, you have additional jobs. So if I'm looking at replacing the rear roof with the back corner window, and I want to do a bunch of plumbing, and I want to do the more electrics, I want to do the bathroom, I want to do the central heating, I want to do the rendering. Ideally, these all would take place in the next 12 months. You know, if I'm looking at an additional £50,000 of contractor costs, then I can now look at this and say, okay, well, probably that makes an extra 10,000 as well, just on my standard DIY costs. Then on top of that, I need to think about my living costs. So it's probably around 25 grand a year on bills and going out and running my car. And then you also just have, you know, if you're running your own business, and tax bills and things as well to take into account. So you can see that owning a house that is a project like this is a very big expense, very big financial burden. However, hopefully, as long as I don't break the bank entirely, it will end up in a nice situation. Hopefully I will have a nice house at the end of it. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a breakdown on the costs so far. That was the last 12 months, 2023. It might not feel like a lot, but then getting people in and arranging it, and then also going in and doing the work yourself over weekends, it really does add up the time. And a year passes very quickly when you're working like that. Hopefully the next 12 months we'll see again a similar sort of progress. Hopefully we will see that office completed, and hopefully I will be able to do a bathroom as well. And I would also really like to get central heating working in the house so that it's a really, you know, we're protecting the house from damp at that point. All right, so there we go. That's 23. Here's to 2024. Let's see how we get on.